Everybody, and welcome back to another Chat Stats and Fun Facts, a 2025 season preview brought to you by the Dry Pink Dialogue. Today, we are discussing Julian Gressel, the man that Tata Martino started as much as anyone else, any other outfield player in 2024, feels almost like an afterthought in 2025. And I don't know if that's the right way to think about this. And so that's why we're having a nice 15-minute conversation about him. Saur, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I mention Julian Gressel?
Bend it like Beckham, because he has a brilliant whip on him. And whenever he's on the right wing side, he's a completely different player compared to when he's playing centrally, where Tata Martino forced him into that squad. And he just looked really good in that right wing side and reminded me of the old days of Beckham just whipping those balls in. So I'm going to go with Bend it like Beckham for Julian Gressel.
Yeah, he had the game-saving assist on a corner in that first game against Club America that we ended up winning on penalties. He had another ball that was worthy of an assist against Olympia last night. And so Julian Gressel hasn't changed as a player, and I don't think anyone should feel that way. It's just a matter of all the circumstances around him changed, and we'll get to that in a second. But here's my fun fact. Julian Gressel has more MLS Cup trophies than anyone else on this team. He has 2 MLS Cups to his name, and he's an MLS Cup winner. I'm sorry, he's an MLS winner. One more in the MLS than anyone else on this roster, and probably everyone else on this roster combined, who mostly only have the 1 Leagues Cup and the 1 Supporter Shield. So this guy's a winner. This guy's an impact player in the MLS, and I think that even if you looked deeper into the stats last year, you kind of saw that even at Inter Miami. 40 games, 38 starts, 2,959 minutes, almost 3,000 minutes, 1 goal, 10 assists. We saw him break out in the middle of the season at right wing in Tata Martino's system. And as you mentioned, you put him on that right side, he can put it where he wants to. He's excellent on set pieces. He's excellent on corners. And even in the run of play, he can really deliver an incredible ball from that right side. So there's not a question about what he can be. It's just a matter of how's Javier Mascherano going to use him. So let me start with this. Let's just get out of the way. Is he going to be here when Inter Miami starts the season against Sporting Kansas City in 9 days?
You mentioned Julian Gressel as a winner. He's an MLS veteran, played for multiple clubs. Honestly, a great player and will contribute to every single club that he goes to. From what I've seen in the preseason, with how Javier Mascherano is planning to play and how much he's utilized Gressel, I don't think he's long for Inter Miami. I do think by the end of the transfer window, come April, he's probably going to have a new club. There are multiple factors to that. You mentioned there's absolutely no lack of quality here. He's definitely going to have an impact on this team whenever he's asked to play, especially in that right wing spot. If we're planning to utilize our wingers differently this season compared to what Tata Martino did, he can be an asset in that right wing space where not only is he able to deliver some really good balls, but he can drive the transitions into offense when we need to, as we saw during half of last season when Messi wasn't there and Julian Gressel was operating on that right wing side. So lots of elements to his game that we can use, but it doesn't seem like he's Javier Mascherano's first choice in any of the positions. So the fact that he's lost his biggest advocate in Tata Martino, the fact that the Atlanta series, we didn't really utilize him at all, and he came out publicly, saying that he wasn't happy with the role. He expected to play more of a role, and maybe should have, and justifiably should have. I think there are a few things in and around Julian Gressel happening that by the end of the transfer window, he's not going to be with Inter Miami.
I agree with you. I think it makes so much sense for him to go be a starter, and not just a starter, a star somewhere else in the MLS. And I think it makes sense for Inter Miami to reallocate those roster resources in a place that's not going to be sort of your backup right winger or backup right back. So I wanted to just say that because I still think at the beginning of the offseason, or at least when Tata Martino decided he wasn't going to come back, I think we both felt almost guaranteed that Julian Gressel was going to leave. And then as the season has come and the preseason has come and we've seen some games, I think we're less sure of that now. But I still think that lingers over him probably more than anyone else on this roster, just because he came to play with Tata Martino. Tata Martino started him game in and game out. And then his biggest advocate, like you said, is gone. Now, he gets more life, I think, when you bring in Javier Mascherano and who wants to play with a right winger that's not Messi, because I do think he could fit that role well. So let's talk about if he does play for 2025 with Inter Miami, because I still think he's really talented. And I know he gets some baggage, but mostly that comes from the midfield. And if Inter Miami is going to play a two-man midfield, I don't think Julian Gressel is anything but sort of a depth option there, and one that's deep on the depth chart. But as a right winger, I think he has real skills. What this Inter Miami team has done with Sanyehi and Mascherano and Guillermo Hoyos this winter window is bring in a bunch of different types of wingers. We've seen Fafa Biko, who's the speedster. We've seen Robert Taylor, who can take guys on one-on-one. We've seen Tadeo Allende, who's big and physical. We've seen, or we're going to see, potentially Telasco Segovia, who's got real ball skills as like a number 10 out there wide. And then you have Julian Gressel, who is, if you keep him on that right side and you just ask him to whip in balls, he's going to create offense for you. So there's a ton of different options for Javier Mascherano to put in different places when he feels like it's appropriate. And so maybe that ends up being the role for Julian Gressel, where the other team has a specific style that needs to be broken down with balls in from the right. And Julian Gressel is the perfect man in that case to do that. And if that's the case, I think that's an awesome role for Julian Gressel. And I think he would get plenty of plaudits for doing that role well, because, again, he's really talented. And I do think there's a way he can have a really positive influence on the season this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever there's space to play in that field, he shines. Whenever he gets enough space to play, he really performs well. Whenever he gets space to put those balls in, it's absolutely pinpoint every single time. I'm only worried that we don't necessarily have that target man anymore with Leo Campana gone, so we don't have a number 9 striker in the middle who can get at the end of the ball. Suarez obviously, for now. Suarez obviously can, but he's not that number 9. But that still doesn't mean that Julian Gressel or his skill sets are redundant. He can still really influence the game when the pace of the game is slightly on the slower side and he doesn't have to do as much of the defensive running and making sure that he's stopping the defensive transitions. And all he has to do is just move the ball forward and put in good balls. He's more than capable of doing that. So as an asset, I think you and me are both on the same page that there's no doubt that he will contribute to this team in a positive manner if he stays on. And I wouldn't mind him staying on at all. If he's on the roster by the end of this transfer window, I'm more than happy with that. And I think there's a role for him to play. I don't know if he sees it that way. I think it's more about how Julian Gressel sees his role and how much he wants to play.
Okay. For the rest of this conversation, let's assume he's going to be here, because if he moves on, then it is what it is. But and the rest of this conversation becomes redundant anyways. One of the things I've noticed is he's played some right back this preseason. When he first signed, I thought, wow, this is the guy who's going to replace DeAndre Yedlin. I thought he was going to be our starting right back last year, or at least compete with Yedlin. And then Tata Martino never played him there one time, even in the preseason, or even for a 5-minute cameo or like anything. I think he may have played right wing back like once or twice before Chelo Wigan arrived and after Yedlin had been sold. But for the most part,
that was the plan. I think the plan was to play him right wing back, never like an out and out right back. So
perhaps,
if you remember, Tata Martino wanted to play that 3-man back line. So
he played him in the midfield, though, even when we were going with that 3-5-2 in the beginning of the season. And so I don't know about that. I think Tata Martino saw him as a central midfielder, and I think we both agree, and I think a lot of Inter Miami fans that watched him last year agree, that if you're going to put him in a midfield with Busquets, you don't have enough defensive strength or athleticism to really handle that. And so maybe if Busquets doesn't play and you put him with Yannick Bright, you know, there are ways it could work. You put him with Telasco Segovia. Like, I think there are ways it could work, but in an ideal lineup, I don't think he fits into the central midfield role. So that puts him back out to the right wing, where I think that's his best role. And so if you told me he was going to start our first 10 games at right wing, I would pencil him in for like 6 goal contributions. Honestly, because he has that type of impact in his game. So it's a strange player. It's a strange preview to do because we don't know what's going on in the head of Javier Mascherano. I don't think he figures into Javier Mascherano's plan A, but as we know, throughout the course of a season, you get through from plan A to plan Z over the course of 40, 50 games. So I think if he's on the team, Julian Gressel will fit in somewhere, and I think he'll give us some really nice moments. We've already seen in the preseason, right? He's the only player that's had a game-winning assist or game-equalizing assist in stoppage time. So let's go back to right back. Sorry. Does he fit in there? Because you're saying no, and I'm curious about this. Cello Wiegand is going to go into the season as the number one right back. I think we both like what Ian Frey can do at right back. I think we're both curious to see what Gonzalo Lujan can do at right back. So this is not last year where it felt like for much of the season it was Cello or
nothing,
right? We have some options, but I remember that first preseason game against Club America, and we asked our fullbacks to stay really deep in terms of being not very aggressive going forward. Cello Wiegand did the role fine, and that's what it was. But if that's what we're going to do on a semi-consistent basis, and you're not asking Julian Gressel to get high up the pitch and then run back in transition with wingers, and so his job is to sort of stay conservative and then just whip balls forward up the field, and he's a pretty good transition player, I'll add. I could see that working offensively. And if it can work offensively and be impactful, then I can see it working defensively if he's not asked to do a ton of getting up and down the field. So we'll see. I don't think we have a clear idea of what Javier Mascherano's system is yet, but I think there could be something for Julian Gressel at right back this year.
I can totally see a scenario where Julian Gressel on the right side of the pitch puts a really nice crossfield ball into Fafa Picault, who's rinsed his defender, found the space, and gets the goal or an assist. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen from the right back spot or that's going to happen from the right wing spot. Intuition tells me he's not going to be a right back. Intuition tells me he'll probably be that right wing player. I don't know. Again, it's speculation. It might have been that Javier Mascherano played him in the right back spot towards the end of the game just to have bodies in there and get his fitness up. We haven't seen him play in that role since, so that tells me
he played there twice in the preseason. He's gone back there twice,
and then it's also the case of you've got Cello, but then after Cello, I think the next on the order is Gonzalo Lujan, potentially Frey, and then maybe Julian Gressel. So maybe it comes down to game, perhaps, where there's a game that Javier Mascherano thinks that Julian Gressel can actually, he needs him on the right back spot. So you never know. But for me, it could work. I'm a little bit hesitant to say it will work completely because of his physicality and running back in defense. But if he doesn't need to do that, then maybe it could work.
And let me be clear. I don't think that's plan A. I just think that it might be plan S. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'll get to plan S at some point in the season, and maybe sooner than we would like.
Please no.
Oh, we're definitely getting there, because that's the nature of a soccer season. Like, guys will get injured, they'll have poor form, and they will, run into the ground, and they'll need rotation. Like, that just happens over the course of the season. So I think there's minutes for Julian Gressel, especially on the right side, if he's here. And so, I think if he plays a lot, he can be a really impactful player for Inter Miami. I think the key is to just keep him on that right side of the pitch where he can utilize his best assets.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think he plays centrally. He has to play on the right wing side, whether it's right back or right wing.
Okay. I think I know where we're going based on, or at least where you're going based on where this conversation went. But my over-under for 2025 is 30 games played for Inter Miami. This would imply he stays on the team this year. And it would imply he's one of the main rotation pieces, not necessarily a starter, but one of the main rotation pieces. Over under 30 games played for Inter Miami this year.
I'm going to go under 30.
Well, if you think
he might actually stay on beyond the transfer window.
Right.
But I do think he's going to go in July. So if that's the case, then I don't think he plays more than 30. I think either this transfer window or the next transfer window, he's potentially going to leave, unless there's some miracle and he starts every single game until the end of the next transfer window. You never know, man. Football's a weird sport, so I'll be happy to have him either ways.
Who would you be more surprised to be a real starter in 2025 on the wing? Robert Taylor or Julian Gressel?
Julian Gressel. Because Robert Taylor is naturally a winger, and it feels like he does more of what Javier Mascherano wants his wingers to do that is make those runs in behind. But I'll be more surprised with Julian Gressel coming in on the right wing spot, but that doesn't mean that he can't do a job there. Yeah.
Okay. Any other hot takes or predictions for Julian Gressel?
No, man, I'm just excited to see what happens with his future because he's been a good servant to Inter Miami last season. He's played probably more games than anyone else. And it hasn't always been positive. It hasn't always worked out, but he's definitely contributed. And he was a huge part of that goal, record-breaking point season. So
yeah, we don't win this. We don't win the points record if he's not a Heron
not
right
at
now.
all.
So
Not at all.
yeah, great moments from Julian Gressel. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. As always, we will see you in the next one, and have a lovely, lovely afternoon. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this, and have a wonderful day.